It was a bright Saturday afternoon when Alana stepped out of the glass doors of a luxury shopping mall. She carried two elegant bags in her hands, each holding small but expensive items she had bought for herself. Alana was not the type of young woman who often bragged about her success, but she liked to reward herself after working hard. At only 24, she had already completed her master's degree in business and worked in a growing consulting firm. Her colleagues respected her for her sharp mind and calm attitude. She was not just intelligent, she was also kind, polite, and confident in how she carried herself. That afternoon she had taken time for herself. She had walked into a boutique where the sales associates greeted her by name. They knew her from her regular visits, always admiring her ability to pick timeless outfits. She smiled as she looked at her reflection in the store's mirror. Dressed in a simple cream blouse, dark tailored trousers, and soft leather shoes, she looked professional but also stylish. Around her wrist was a small golden bracelet, a gift from her grandmother when she graduated. Alana believed in carrying herself with grace, not just for herself but as a reflection of her family's values. When she left the mall, the city's energy surrounded her. People hurried with shopping bags, children tugged at their parents' hands, and a group of teenagers laughed loudly as they passed by. Alana walked toward her car, parked neatly on the side street. It was a silver sedan, clean and modest, though clearly well kept. She had saved up for years to buy it. Every time she slid into the driver's seat, she felt proud, not because of the brand, but because she had earned it herself. As she drove out of the parking area, soft jazz music played from her car speakers. She tapped her fingers lightly on the steering wheel, thinking about calling her best friend to meet for dinner later. The sun painted golden streaks across the sky, and for a moment, Alana felt grateful. Life was not always easy, but she had worked hard to reach this stage. She thought about her parents, who had always encouraged her to believe in herself, and about her grandmother, who told her that carrying herself with dignity was one of the greatest strengths a woman could have. The traffic lights ahead turned green, and she continued along the smooth road. The neighborhood she was heading to was quiet, lined with tall trees and neat houses. Many of her neighbors were older couples who had lived there for decades. Some waved at her occasionally when she jogged in the mornings. She liked the peace of the area, it gave her a sense of safety and belonging. But that peaceful feeling was suddenly broken when she noticed flashing lights in her rearview mirror. A police car followed her closely, signaling for her to pull over. Alana felt her stomach tighten, not because she had done anything wrong, but because unexpected stops always carried tension. She checked her speedometer, it was within the limit. She checked her seat belt, it was buckled. She sighed gently, trying to stay calm, and guided her car to the side of the road. The officer stepped out slowly and approached her window. Alana rolled it down politely, keeping her hands visible on the steering wheel. She had always been taught by her parents to remain respectful in these situations. "Good afternoon, officer," she said gently. Her voice carried calmness, though inside she felt slightly uneasy. The man standing outside her window wore dark sunglasses even though the sun was beginning to set. His expression was unreadable. He looked at her car, then at her shopping bags on the passenger seat. For a long moment, he said nothing, which made the silence feel heavy. Finally, he cleared his throat. "License and registration," he said in a tone that was sharp but not loud. Alana nodded and handed over the documents she always kept neatly in her glove compartment. "Of course, officer," she replied softly. Her heart beat a little faster, but she maintained her composure. The officer took them, glancing quickly before shifting his eyes back to her. His gaze lingered on her bracelet, then on the handbag beside her. Alana noticed it but tried not to let it unsettle her. She asked politely, "Is there a problem, sir?" hoping for an explanation. Usually, officers explain the reason for a stop, perhaps a broken light or a small traffic error. But he didn't answer directly. Instead, he leaned slightly closer, scanning the interior of her car. His eyes seemed to carry a mixture of curiosity and judgment. The moment felt strange, as though this stop was not about traffic at all. Alana's mind raced quietly, but on the outside she stayed calm. She remembered her grandmother's words, "Never let fear write your story. Stand with dignity, even when the world tries to push you down." She sat upright, keeping her tone respectful, waiting for his response. The officer shifted his weight, tapped the roof of her car with his fingers, and finally said, "Just checking something. Stay put." As he walked back to his vehicle, Alana inhaled deeply, her hands still steady on the wheel. She looked ahead at the quiet road. A bird flew across, landing on a fence post, as if to remind her that the world outside still carried peace. She took strength from that simple sight. Something about the officer's behavior did not feel right, but she refused to let her mind spiral into fear. Instead, she focused on patience, on control, on being watchful. Minutes passed, though they felt longer than they were. She saw him speaking into his radio, glancing back at her car, then returning with her documents. He handed them back with a short nod but did not step away. Alana thanked him and held the papers gently. The air between them carried an odd tension, unspoken but heavy. She could sense that this was not the end of the interaction. And so, what had begun as a normal afternoon, a simple shopping trip, a drive through her peaceful neighborhood, was turning into something unexpected. Alana did not yet know how much this moment would change her life. She did not know that her calmness, her quick mind, and her refusal to let fear take over would soon make her the center of a story that reached far beyond her quiet street. Alana held her documents firmly in her hand, waiting for the officer to step back so she could continue her journey. But instead of moving away, he remained beside her car, leaning slightly against the door as if he had more to say. His silence was unsettling. She kept her eyes forward, her breathing steady, reminding herself that she had done nothing wrong. Finally, he spoke again, his tone slow and deliberate. "Where are you headed this evening?" Alana turned her head politely, keeping her voice calm. "I'm going home, sir." She offered a small smile, hoping to keep the conversation respectful and brief. But he didn't seem satisfied. "Home, huh? And where exactly is that?" he pressed, as though her answer was not enough. She gave the name of her neighborhood, a well-known residential area not far from where they stood. The officer raised his eyebrows slightly, as if surprised. "That's a pretty fancy part of town," he remarked, his eyes sliding toward her shopping bags again. Alana felt a quiet wave of discomfort. She had worked hard to live where she did, and she was proud of it. Yet, she knew the tone in his voice. It was the sound of someone who doubted her place, someone who wanted to question her worth. She remained composed. "Yes, I live there," she replied softly. The officer tapped the top of her car once more, then leaned closer. "Mind stepping out for a moment?" he asked. Her heart skipped. There was no clear reason for such a request, yet refusing outright might make things worse. She nodded gently and opened the door, stepping out onto the quiet roadside. The evening breeze touched her face, carrying with it the faint smell of freshly cut grass from the nearby lawns. She stood tall, her posture straight, her chin lifted just slightly. The officer circled her car slowly, his eyes scanning from the front bumper to the back. "Nice ride," he muttered. Then he paused by the passenger seat, where her shopping bags rested. He reached out and tapped one of them with a finger. "Did some good shopping today, I see." Alana nodded politely. "Just a few things." He looked at her directly. "Mind if I take a look?" The question didn't sound like a real request. It sounded more like a demand. Alana's instinct told her something was off. Still, she chose her words carefully. "Those are personal items, sir," she said softly. Is there a reason you need to check them? The officer's jaw tightened slightly. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. Look, sometimes people carry things they shouldn't. I just want to be sure. Alana's pulse quickened. She knew she had nothing illegal, nothing suspicious. These were clothes, accessories, and a book she had bought earlier. But his eyes were not scanning with the concern of safety. They carried a different hunger, one that made her uneasy. She reminded herself to stay calm. With all respect, sir, these are receipts and purchases from the mall, she explained, her voice steady. You're welcome to check them if you have a clear reason, but I'd appreciate knowing what that reason is. Her words were firm but polite. For a brief moment, silence hung between them. He studied her face, as though weighing how far he could push her. Then he smiled faintly, not a warm smile, but one that hinted at impatience. You seem to be doing well for yourself, he said. Nice clothes, nice car, nice neighborhood. Not everyone around here can afford all that. His eyes flickered again to her bracelet, then to her handbag. Ever think about how some people get what they want in different ways? Alana caught the meaning behind his words. He was not simply curious, he was trying to plant doubt, to treat her success as suspicious. She had experienced such subtle remarks before, but never in such a tense situation. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind, when someone tries to make you feel small, stand tall. Dignity is your shield. She clasped her hands lightly in front of her, her shoulders squared. I work hard for what I have, sir. Everything you see, I've earned with honesty. The officer studied her again. Then, instead of backing off, he shifted the conversation. Maybe you should open that bag for me anyway, he said, his tone firmer this time. Alana's thoughts raced. She could comply, but something told her that giving in without reason might only encourage more. She needed to be wise. She glanced at her phone, resting on the driver's seat, and an idea sparked. If she could keep calm long enough, she might find a way to protect herself. She reached slowly into the car, picked up her phone, and slipped it into her pocket. Of course, officer, she said with a gentle nod, buying herself time. May I place my things on the hood so you can see them clearly? He tilted his head, then gestured for her to go ahead. Alana placed one shopping bag on the hood of the car, carefully arranging the items inside to show they were harmless. A silk scarf, a paperback novel, a pair of shoes. She pulled out the receipts as well, laying them on top. The officer looked at them, but his eyes didn't carry relief or satisfaction. Instead, he seemed almost disappointed. That all you got? He asked, his voice quiet. Yes, Alana answered. That's all. The officer sighed, stepping back. But then his eyes shifted again, landing on her handbag. And what about that? Alana gently picked up her bag, holding it close. This is personal, she replied softly. She could feel her heartbeat in her chest, yet her face remained calm. The officer's gaze lingered, and for the first time, Alana realized the situation was no longer just about a traffic stop. It was something more, something that tested her strength. She knew she had to be careful with every word, every move. She slipped one hand into her pocket and quietly tapped her phone. With a few practiced movements, she unlocked it without drawing attention. Her plan was simple: if things escalated further, she would find a way to alert someone. The street was quiet. A few cars passed by in the distance, but none slowed down. The world around her seemed normal, yet here she was, standing in a moment that felt heavy and uncertain. The officer leaned closer, lowering his voice even more. You should let me see what's inside. It'll make things easier for both of us. Alana looked him in the eye. She knew she had reached a turning point. This was no longer about traffic, no longer about safety. She stood there, calm but alert, her phone ready in her pocket, her mind sharp and focused. She gave a gentle nod, pretending to consider. "I understand, sir," she said softly. "Let me just adjust something first." Her fingers hovered carefully, ready to act. And in that moment, though she stood quietly on a lonely road, Alana was not powerless. She was preparing for something greater, something that would soon change everything. Alana's hand rested lightly on her phone in her pocket. Every muscle in her body was alert, but her face remained calm. She knew that a single wrong move could escalate the situation, yet she also understood that staying silent or giving in completely might lead to far worse consequences. She took a slow breath, pretending to adjust her handbag, while secretly opening her phone's call function. She scrolled quickly, pretending to check a message, but in reality, she had one goal: to alert someone who could intervene if the situation went beyond control. Her mother's number was the fastest way to reach help, but she needed a reason that didn't make the officer suspicious. "Excuse me, I need to call someone about a ride," she said softly, keeping her voice light. "I think they're supposed to meet me here in a few minutes." The officer watched her carefully, narrowing his eyes. "A ride? You live nearby. Why do you need someone to meet you?" Alana smiled faintly, keeping her tone gentle. "It's a new service my family uses for safety sometimes," she explained, not giving away too much. "They're just confirming my location." She pressed the call button and brought the phone close to her ear, pretending to speak quietly. "Hello? Yes, I'm almost ready." Her words were calm, practiced, and she made sure the officer could hear them without realizing she was recording. He frowned, stepping a little closer. "Who are you talking to?" "My friend," she replied softly, letting her eyes meet his for a brief second. "They're making sure I get home safely." He didn't move away, but he didn't stop her either. Alana kept her voice low, pretending to chat, while discreetly pressing the record button on her phone. Every word he said could serve as proof if she needed it later. The officer tapped his foot impatiently. "You seem very careful about your things," he said, glancing again at the shopping bags and the car. "Not everyone gets this nervous." Alana didn't flinch. "I just like to be careful," she answered softly. "Especially when handling important items." She heard the faint sound of footsteps approaching from a distance. Her heart lifted slightly. Help was arriving, or at least someone would witness what was happening. She glanced at the officer, who noticed too. He straightened, suddenly alert, as if sensing that his control over the situation was weakening. The young man approaching was one of her neighbors. Alana recognized him immediately. He often walked his dog in the evenings. "Hey, Alana," he called, waving. "Everything okay?" The officer tensed, his expression changing subtly. Alana turned toward her neighbor, using the moment to step slightly backward, keeping the distance between her and the officer. "Yes, thanks," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Just waiting for someone." Her neighbor stopped closer, looking puzzled but supportive. "You look fine, but do you want me to stay for a minute?" Alana nodded gently. "I'd appreciate that, thank you." The officer's face hardened. He could sense that Alana had gained a small advantage. More people were present now. He stepped back slightly, crossing his arms. "So, you're safe then," he said. His tone was neutral, almost cautious now. Alana kept her hands visible, showing nothing threatening. She smiled faintly, pretending to be polite and cooperative. "Yes, I'm fine," she said. "I just prefer to have someone aware of my location sometimes." The officer muttered something under his breath and began pacing slightly. Alana stayed alert, ready for any sudden moves. Her phone remained discreetly in her pocket, recording every word. She felt the tension in the air, thick but manageable. Minutes passed slowly. The neighbor stayed close, asking casual questions, keeping his eyes on the officer without being confrontational. Alana seized the opportunity to continue her phone call quietly, pretending to speak normally. "Yes, I'm almost at the exit now." "No, everything's fine." Just a small delay. Her words were calm and composed, but internally, she was calculating the next steps carefully. The officer leaned closer again. "You know," he said, lowering his voice, "I could make this easier for you. You just have to cooperate. I'm not trying to make things difficult." Alana raised her eyebrows politely. "I'm cooperating," she said softly. "I just want to make sure everything is clear and safe. That's all." He studied her face for a moment, then shifted his tone. "Look, sometimes people need a little help to understand what's important," he said. His eyes flicked again to her shopping bags. Alana sensed that he was testing her patience, trying to intimidate her. She needed to remain calm, not give him the satisfaction of fear. "I appreciate your concern, sir," she said, her voice steady, "but I'm fully aware of my responsibilities." Her neighbor, sensing the tension, spoke up casually. "Hey, officer, you're doing your job, but I just came to make sure everything's okay." His presence added weight, a witness to the interaction. The officer hesitated, his eyes darting between Alana and her neighbor. For a brief moment, Alana saw uncertainty in his posture. He had lost some of the control he had been trying to exert from the start. Alana took a slow, deliberate breath. She knew the next moment could change everything. "Sir," she said, keeping her voice calm and respectful, "I need to make sure my ride knows exactly where I am. May I step a few feet closer to the sidewalk to speak freely?" He paused, then nodded slightly. Alana stepped back a few feet, creating space between them. She kept her phone close, now fully recording, ready to capture anything else he might attempt. "You seem very prepared," he said, his tone less threatening now, more cautious. Alana smiled faintly. "I like to be prepared. It's safer that way." As she continued speaking quietly into her phone, pretending to talk with her ride, she noticed the officer's hand twitch slightly. He seemed unsure whether to press further or to step back. Alana remained calm, projecting confidence. Her composure was her strongest tool. A few minutes later, she ended her call with a polite goodbye. She glanced toward her neighbor. "Thank you for staying," she said softly. Her neighbor nodded, giving her a reassuring smile. "Of course. I thought you might need someone here." The officer stepped back slightly, his expression shifting. He was no longer leaning in, no longer trying to intimidate. Alana could feel that the presence of witnesses had made him reconsider his actions. She stood tall, keeping her posture firm, showing that she would not be easily pressured or frightened. Alana carefully opened her car door again, placing her phone on the seat within reach. She kept the items visible, showing that nothing was hidden, nothing suspicious, but she also made sure the officer could see her recording device subtly. "I'll be going now," she said calmly, slipping into her car. The officer watched her, a hint of tension in his shoulders. "Drive safely," he muttered. Alana started the engine slowly, keeping her movements deliberate. She knew she had gained the upper hand, not by confrontation, but by patience, presence of mind, and calm intelligence. Every action she had taken had been measured, careful, and designed to protect herself. As she drove away slowly, she exhaled quietly. Her heart was still racing, but her mind was clear. She had turned a dangerous situation into one she could manage. And more importantly, she had recorded evidence of the officer's inappropriate behavior. By the time she reached a safe distance, Alana felt a mix of relief and determination. She knew she had done the right thing by staying calm, thinking clearly, and using the tools at her disposal. She had protected herself without escalating the situation and had created a record that could ensure accountability. Once home, she immediately uploaded the recording to a secure location, ready to share it with the proper authorities if needed. Alana understood the power of documentation, the importance of being prepared, and the impact of composure in high-pressure situations. That night, as she reflected on what had happened, she realized that courage wasn't about confrontation. It wasn't about fearlessly charging into a situation. It was about intelligence, patience, and using every resource wisely. Alana had not only protected herself, but she had also set the stage for justice to be served, if needed. The lesson was clear: in moments of tension, staying calm, thinking quickly, and taking measured action could turn the odds in one's favor. Alana felt proud, not because she had faced danger, but because she had faced it wisely. And in her heart, she knew that this would not just be a moment she survived, it would be a moment that reminded her of her strength, her intelligence, and her ability to protect herself in any situation. The next morning, Alana woke up with a sense of determination. She had survived a tense situation the previous evening, but she knew that the real work was just beginning. Sitting at her kitchen table, she poured herself a cup of coffee and reviewed the recordings she had made on her phone. Each word, each gesture, each pause of the officer was documented clearly. She felt a mix of relief and focus. Relief because she had stayed safe, and focus because she realized the importance of acting carefully now. Her first step was to organize everything. She transferred the recordings to a secure cloud account, creating multiple backups. Then she wrote a clear note detailing what had happened, including the date, time, and location of the incident. She added descriptions of the officer's actions, his words, and her own responses. Every detail mattered. Alana knew that careful documentation could make the difference between her story being taken seriously or ignored. Next, she contacted her mother. Her mother was wise, practical, and experienced in dealing with serious situations. Alana explained everything, step by step, keeping her voice calm and clear. Her mother listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions that helped Alana remember even small details. "You did everything right, Alana," her mother said finally. "You stayed calm, you recorded everything, and you kept witnesses nearby. Now, it's time to bring this to the right authorities." Alana nodded, even though her mother couldn't see her. "I know," she said softly. "I want to make sure this is handled correctly. I don't want anyone else to go through this." Together, they made a plan. Alana would report the incident to the Internal Affairs Division of the Police Department, the department that handled misconduct among officers. She would provide the recordings and her written report. Her mother suggested she also reach out to a trusted lawyer, someone experienced in cases involving official misconduct. Alana agreed. She wanted to be careful, professional, and prepared for every step. By late morning, she was ready. Alana put on a simple outfit, one that looked casual but professional. She took the recordings on her phone, her written report, and a folder containing any notes she had made about the previous night. Her heart was steady, but her mind was alert. She understood that this step was critical. One wrong word or gesture could complicate her case, but she also knew that staying silent would allow the officer's behavior to go unchecked. At the police station, Alana asked for the Internal Affairs office. A young officer at the front desk directed her to a waiting area. She sat quietly, reviewing her notes and rehearsing the key points she needed to communicate. Every detail, every timestamp, every action mattered. She needed to be precise. A middle-aged woman, introduced as Detective Harris, approached her. "Alana, thank you for coming in today," she said warmly. "I understand you have an incident to report." "Yes," Alana replied, standing calmly. "I want to report inappropriate behavior by an officer that occurred yesterday. I have a recording, written notes, and a clear account of the events." Detective Harris nodded, gesturing for Alana to follow her to a private office. Once inside, she closed the door and gestured to a chair. "Please, take a seat. I want to hear everything from the beginning." Alana began calmly, recounting each moment of the encounter. She explained how the officer had approached her, what he had said, how she had responded, and how she had kept witnesses nearby. She described the way she had subtly recorded the conversation and the officer's actions, explaining why she felt it was necessary to protect herself. Detective Harris listened carefully, taking notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. Alana felt a mix of relief and tension as she spoke. Relief because she was finally sharing her story with someone who could help, and tension because she knew that the consequences for the officer would not be immediate. She understood the process would take time, and she wanted to make sure every detail was precise. After Alana finished, Detective Harris reviewed the recordings. She watched the officer's gestures, heard his words, and noted the way he tried to assert control. "This is very clear evidence," she said finally. "You documented everything perfectly. This will be very helpful in ensuring that the proper investigation takes place." Alana nodded. "I wanted to make sure nothing was left to chance," she said. "I just want to make sure this officer cannot harm anyone else." Detective Harris smiled gently. "You did the right thing. We will launch an internal investigation, and this officer will be held accountable if the allegations are confirmed. Your evidence is strong, and your calm, careful approach made it even stronger." After leaving the station, Alana felt a sense of accomplishment. She knew the process would not be quick. Internal investigations could take weeks, sometimes months, but she had taken the most important first steps. She had stayed safe, documented everything, and reached out to the right authorities. Over the next few days, Alana maintained her usual routine while staying alert for any updates. Her phone buzzed several times with messages from Detective Harris requesting clarifications or additional information. Each time, Alana responded quickly, providing precise answers. She felt confident because she had prepared thoroughly and knew her records were accurate. Word of the incident began to spread quietly among her community. People admired Alana's composure and intelligence. They praised her for acting responsibly, without panicking, and for using modern tools to protect herself. Some neighbors who had witnessed her calmly handling the situation approached her, offering support and gratitude. Alana smiled and thanked them, but she remained focused on the process ahead. A week later, Alana received a call from her lawyer. "Alana, we've reviewed your case and the recordings. The evidence is very strong. If you wish, we can also coordinate with media outlets to ensure the story reaches a wider audience, to encourage accountability." Alana paused. She knew the power of public awareness, but she also understood the risks of going public too early. "I want to focus on the investigation first," she said firmly. "Justice should come from the proper authorities, not just public attention." Her lawyer nodded in agreement. "That's wise. The official process will have more impact if handled correctly. But it's good to know we have options if needed." Meanwhile, Detective Harris contacted Alana with news. "We've begun interviewing witnesses, including your neighbor who was present. We've also requested body camera footage from the officer's patrol for the evening of the incident. Everything aligns with your account so far." Alana felt a sense of cautious optimism. She understood that justice was not instant, but the careful steps she had taken were making a real difference. She continued her daily life, attending her classes, going to work, and spending time with family, but she remained vigilant, ready for any further developments. One afternoon, she received another call from Detective Harris. "Alana, the officer has been temporarily suspended while we continue the investigation. Your evidence played a key role in this decision. This is a necessary step to ensure safety and integrity within the department." Alana exhaled deeply. Relief washed over her. She had not only protected herself, but she had also ensured that immediate action was taken to prevent potential harm to others. She realized that her calm, measured approach, combined with careful documentation, had turned a frightening experience into an opportunity for accountability. As the investigation continued, Alana reflected on the lessons she had learned. Courage, she realized, was not about confrontation. It was about preparation, intelligence, and using every available tool wisely. Her ability to remain calm, to record events discreetly, and to involve witnesses had made all the difference. Even as she carried on with her life, she knew the officers' actions would no longer go unnoticed. The recordings, the witnesses, and the careful reporting had created a trail that could not be ignored. Justice, she understood, was often a process of persistence and precision, not just anger or fear. By the end of the week, Alana felt a growing sense of empowerment. She had faced a threatening situation with intelligence and grace. She had taken control without escalating danger. And she had set in motion a process that would ensure accountability. Her calm strength had changed the course of events, protecting herself and potentially many others from harm. Alana woke up that morning with a sense of calm determination. The events of the past week had been intense, but she had handled them carefully, step by step. Today felt different. There was a quiet confidence in her that she had not felt before. She had done everything possible to protect herself, document the incident, and alert the proper authorities. Now, it was time to see the results of her careful actions. Her phone buzzed gently with a message from Detective Harris. The detective had good news: the investigation into the officer's conduct had progressed rapidly, and the Internal Affairs Division had gathered overwhelming evidence. The recordings, witness statements, and her clear, detailed notes had created a solid case. Alana felt a small wave of relief wash over her. It was one thing to act cautiously and another to see that the system was responding effectively. Alana spent the morning organizing her thoughts. She wrote a short reflection on what had happened, capturing her emotions, the lessons she had learned, and the strength she had discovered within herself. She knew this experience would stay with her forever, but she wanted to use it to grow stronger, not feel afraid. She also prepared a folder with all her documentation, ready in case the authorities requested additional copies. Preparation had been her strongest tool from the beginning, and she refused to let it go. Later that day, she met with her lawyer. Together, they reviewed the evidence and discussed the next steps. "Alana, your documentation is impeccable," her lawyer said, smiling. "The way you handled this situation, recording everything discreetly and involving witnesses, will make a huge difference in the outcome. The authorities are taking it very seriously." Alana nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "I just wanted to make sure that no one else would face the same danger. I never expected this to become so serious, but I wanted to act responsibly." Her lawyer looked at her thoughtfully. "You've done more than act responsibly. You've set a standard for how to handle a dangerous situation calmly and safely. Many people panic in moments like this, but your methodical approach ensured your safety and created a path for justice." The following days were filled with official meetings and interviews. Alana returned to the police station several times, providing clarifications and additional details whenever requested. Each meeting confirmed the strength of her evidence. Witnesses corroborated her account, and the recordings provided undeniable proof of the officer's misconduct. Alana felt proud, knowing her clear thinking and preparation were making a real difference. Meanwhile, the officer in question had been suspended, and the internal affairs investigation continued without interruption. Alana heard from Detective Harris that the department was also reviewing his past conduct to ensure no previous incidents had been overlooked. This news reinforced Alana's confidence that accountability was being taken seriously. She knew that justice was not only about one event but also about protecting the community in the long term. One afternoon, Alana received a call from the prosecutor's office. The voice on the other end was professional but warm. "Alana, based on the evidence provided and the results of the investigation, the officer is being formally charged with misconduct and attempted robbery. The case will go to trial, and your testimony will be central to securing justice." Alana felt a mixture of relief and resolve. Relief that the authorities were acting decisively, and resolve because she understood the importance of her role. She had stayed calm, recorded everything carefully, and now her actions were helping ensure that justice would be served. In the weeks that followed, the trial began. Alana attended each session, prepared with her lawyer by her side. She gave her testimony clearly, confidently, and without hesitation. The recordings she had made were presented as evidence, alongside witness statements and her written notes. Every detail she had documented was reviewed, and the court recognized the clarity and precision of her reporting. The officer tried to defend himself, claiming he had no ill intent. But the evidence was too strong. The court watched the recordings, heard from the witnesses, and listened to Alana's careful account. It became clear that the officer had attempted to exploit his position and that his actions had been deliberate and dangerous. Alana remained calm throughout the trial, speaking honestly and consistently. She focused on facts, avoiding emotion except when explaining how the experience had affected her sense of safety and trust. Her composure impressed the judge, the jury, and even members of the public who followed the case. People admired her courage and intelligence, understanding that she had handled a frightening situation with extraordinary skill. Finally, after days of testimony and careful review of the evidence, the jury reached a verdict. The officer was found guilty of misconduct, attempted robbery, and abuse of authority. The courtroom was quiet as the judge announced the sentence, 28 years in prison. It was a strong sentence, reflecting the seriousness of the officer's actions and the danger he had posed to the community. Alana felt a profound sense of justice. The relief she experienced was not just personal, it was public. Her careful documentation, her bravery in speaking up, and her calm handling of a dangerous situation had ensured that a dangerous individual could no longer threaten others. She realized that her actions had not only protected herself but had made the community safer. After the trial, Alana returned home, feeling a mix of exhaustion and fulfillment. She took a deep breath, looking around at her room, feeling the safety and comfort she had fought to protect. She knew the experience had changed her, but in a positive way. She had discovered inner strength, the power of careful planning, and the importance of standing up for oneself in a measured, intelligent manner. Her mother came to visit that evening, bringing a small cake and a warm smile. "Alana, you've done something incredible," her mother said softly. "You faced a frightening situation, and you turned it into an opportunity to create justice. I am so proud of you." Alana smiled, feeling the warmth of her mother's words. "I just did what I had to do," she replied. "I wanted to make sure this didn't happen to anyone else. And now, it won't." The days following the trial were quieter. Alana returned to her routine: school, work, and hobbies, but she carried with her the lessons she had learned. She knew that courage was not about confronting danger recklessly. It was about preparation, careful observation, and the ability to act with intelligence and calm. She had applied these skills in a real and dangerous situation, and they had made all the difference. News outlets covered the trial, highlighting Alana's bravery and the officer's conviction. People admired her calm and collected approach, recognizing that she had not only protected herself but had contributed to a culture of accountability. Alana received messages of support and encouragement from people she had never met, praising her intelligence, courage, and commitment to justice. Even as life returned to normal, Alana carried a quiet sense of empowerment. She knew that she had changed not because the danger had defined her, but because she had chosen to respond wisely and responsibly. She had learned that true strength often comes in quiet, deliberate actions rather than loud, impulsive reactions. Months later, Alana reflected on the journey. The memory of the officer's attempt to intimidate her remained, but it no longer carried fear. Instead, it reminded her of her own abilities, her calm strength, and the power of preparation. She knew she could face challenges with intelligence and composure, and she felt a deep sense of pride in her own growth. Her story became an example in her community, showing how courage, preparation, and calm thinking could overcome even dangerous situations. People learned from her actions, understanding that intelligence and careful planning often provide greater protection than fear or panic. Alana realized that her experience was not just about justice for herself, but about inspiring others to act wisely and responsibly when faced with challenges. In the end, Alana's life returned to a sense of normalcy, but it was a normalcy enriched by experience, wisdom, and empowerment. She had faced danger, documented it carefully, involved the right authorities, and ensured accountability. The officer was behind bars, unable to harm anyone else, and she had proven that careful, intelligent action could bring justice even in the most difficult circumstances. Alana smiled as she looked out the window one evening, watching the sunset. The world seemed brighter, safer, and full of possibility. She had faced fear and danger with intelligence and calm, and in doing so, she had changed not only her own life but also the lives of others who would never face the threat she had survived. Her journey had been intense, challenging, and sometimes frightening, but it had also been empowering. She had learned that courage is not just in action, but in preparation, clarity, and calm determination. Alana's story would remain a reminder that even in the face of danger, intelligence, careful planning, and courage can create justice, protection, and lasting impact.